I think we can wait one more minute to make sure we have time for all 6 to show up. Okay.
Need to unmute Carol.
Thank you. I was muted earlier. This is Carol Spencer. I am chair of the commission. Would the other commissioners please introduce themselves?
John Emery.
Doug Regaller.
Ruth Holstrom.
Mike Clayton.
Friedman House.
And is that all the commissioners who are with us this evening? Must be. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Commissioners, you have received a copy of the agenda for this evening. We need to approve that agenda. May I have a motion to do so?
Move to approve the agenda, John Emery.
Got a second?
Doug seconds.
Thank you, Doug. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. It passes. Thank you. We will now, you should also have received in time to review the minutes of our July 29th, 2020 meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to those minutes? If not, I would accept a motion to approve those minutes.
This is Ruth Holstrom. I would move to approve the minutes.
Thank you. May I have a second, please?
Second.
All right. Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving the minutes of July 29th signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. Thank you very much. This evening we have 2 agenda items. The first one is a proposal for the planned residence district and preliminary plat for 2200 Oakwood Road. Would staff give us an overview of this, and then we can turn it over to Mr. Arneson for his presentation?
Yes, let me just pull up. I've got some slides here. Maybe. Okay. So this is the property at 2200 Oakwood Road. Damani is the name of the development. It is just under 24 acres. The applicant is proposing a single-family subdivision at this location, rezoning from the current agricultural zoning to a planned residence district. The applicant is proposing 63 residential lots, single-family detached residential lots, 51 of those will be 0 lot lines, where the home will abut one of the lots and be set back further on the opposite side to create a side yard. And I've got an exhibit of that later to illustrate what I mean. The remainder of the lots will be custom homes at the southern end. And you can see here, this is the property. The north of this kind of break in the lots here, it will be the 0 lot line homes, and then the 12 non-zero lot line homes will be to the south there. The property does currently abut Christopherson Park to the east there, which is down below on this map. And then to the west is an existing neighborhood as well. You can see that the proposed neighborhood does bring through Green Hills Drive going down to the south, and then with a street stub out to the west, and finishes these street stubs for Suncrest Drive and Cottonwood Road. The applicant has gone through the process of working to meet the requirements for the PRD, including that for open space, as well as meeting the requirement that while the interior of the development will be primarily 0 lot lines, the development will follow the base zoning district requirements, which is the base zoning district here is RL, which is residential low density. So the setbacks along the perimeter will be the same as for the base district, which do mirror also the adjacent districts as well. You can see here more of a close-up of the development with the setbacks labeled there. There will be 20-foot setbacks near the entrance. The applicant is also, as you can see here, going to be reconstructing or working with the city to reconstruct the parking lot for Christopherson Park there at the north end, and connecting in the sidewalks of the development to the park. Part of the development also includes a private clubhouse that you can see here at the corner of Suncrest and Green Hills. This will be for the residents of the development, and there will also be a pool there for the resident use. Stormwater has also been a concern on this site. The Domani development does take stormwater from the west and channels it through the development to the park to the east. And the Parks Department and the Public Works Department have worked with the developer and the developer's engineer at Bolton and Mink to address the stormwater concerns to code requirements. And I am available to answer any questions that you may have.
Let's have Mr. Arneson give any kind of a presentation he has for us first. Benjamin, would that be all right? All right.
Yeah,
Mr. Arneson. Keith, are you there?
Yeah, give me
Just a second, Carol. Usually,
yeah, he is here.
So Carol, just a second. Usually, if there's any questions for staff now, we would do that, and then we would, then we would start the public hearing with the applicant, and then have the public speak after the applicant.
That would be fine then. Any questions for staff right now? Thank you, Kelly.
Yes, I have a question. First of all, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Yes.
And were the notices put out to the east? Because I drove out there to just to make sure I knew where everything was, and I saw no signage to the east.
The notice, we did notify everyone within 200 feet. You're talking about the signs that we put out. Kelly and I discussed the signage. It is mostly renters to the east, and we have a finite number of signs, and so we put them out to there's signs at the street stubs for Cottonwood and Suncrest, and up along Oakwood Road, which is where we decided the signs would do the most good.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we didn't run into the same problem as the last time.
Yeah, so we have
Fair
so the
question.
first requirement is one street frontage, which we would have done as Oakwood, and then with the additional signs we had, Benjamin placed those on the west side because we know of neighborhood interest there. And then everybody within 200 feet gets mailed notice. So we've met all of the notice requirements, and yes, they have been placed and mailed.
Okay.
Any other questions for staff?
Hi, this is Anuya. Benjamin, can you quickly run through on the map on how the drainage works from the west to east? I know it said going through outlot D and moving east to the pond. Can you explain that a little bit on how it's going to address some of those stormwater concerns that have been raised? Thank you.
Yeah, I'll see. Kelly and I, we might have to tag team here. There are several drainage ponds. I think this is probably the best map that shows this, although it doesn't have the topography on here. And we do have the engineer here available. I see that Greg Broussard is available. So for the public hearing, if you wanted to ask him some more questions, he could probably give you a more detailed answer. But the drainage comes off of this lot here. And I'm just zooming out a little. So this lot that you can see here to the south of Cottonwood is actually not part of the Suncrest development. It is owned by another entity, and the drainage comes through here from Ringenberg to the even farther west across Cedar Lane, comes through here, and then it will continue through into Outlot D, then into Outlot B, and then into Outlot C. And you can see there's going to be a pond here that will be helping with the stormwater before it then proceeds into the park. The applicant is going to be doing some work in the park as well and tying into some of the drainage on this existing lot here as well. The engineer worked with our Parks Department pretty closely to address concerns that the Parks Department had to treat the stormwater in them.
The other one, yeah, we'll talk about Outlot A also.
Outlot A is also addressing, as you can see, there's another pond up there, which is helping to reduce drainage onto the park as well. Although, as I understand, that one is not taking water from this drainage way here. Is that correct, Kelly? Is that your understanding?
Yeah, correct. But it is addressing other drainage flows at the north end of the site that have been brought up also.
Correct. Yes.
This is interesting, and thanks for that explanation. It helps to look at the map and see how that flow is going to occur. The south lot, or what looks like the top portion of that slender rectangular piece that you said, just west of Outlot D.
Yes.
I assume is that one of the major areas that the stormwater flows east from? And if yes, I assume that might be built at some point in the future too? And if yes, then how might that play into this whole drainage plan that we have for the area?
So I'll address that. So that lot, that rectangular lot, is an outlot that was created as part of the Suncrest subdivision in the early 2000s. It is a drainage component of the Suncrest subdivision, but it also takes water from the Ringenberg subdivision further to the west. And as we understand it, it also has some of the ISU fields to the west also flow through Ringenberg and then into this channel. It is not owned by the city. It is owned by the Friedrich Development Companies as an outlot that they've held since Suncrest, and the city doesn't have a stormwater easement on that property. So there isn't anything necessarily that the city can do or would do with that parcel. It is an outlot that was designed with stormwater in mind originally. Now, with that said, in the early 2000s, we did not have the current stormwater management ordinances that we have. Chapter 5B is our quantity and quality treatment requirements, and they're much more stringent than what would have been in place over 15 years ago. And the current rules have been on the books for about 5 years.
That's helpful. Thank you.
This is Ruth Holstrom. So kind of following that same train with the stormwater management, the staff report kind of stated that maintenance of the open space and site amenities would be provided by a homeowners association. Has the developer discussed, I guess, how that's going to be broken up in terms of cost and such? And if so, if folks are buying these lots, is it going to be clear to them? Because there's a number of obviously, storm water related infrastructure and with the ponds and such. Is it going to be clear to them, that obviously that's potentially going to be their responsibility?
That is a great question. I'm sure that the developer can speak to that. What you are bringing up is frankly an issue with stormwater drainage and maintenance and HOAs everywhere. I don't think that's an issue that's unique to Ames, but Kelly, you look like you're going to say something.
In terms of cost and disclosure, Mr. Arneson can address that. What's different also beyond just the standards that we have today is the city will get stormwater management easements. There's a performance bond that's required of the developer to establish the ponds with a minimum of 3 years before you can get that performance bond back. And the city practices are that the HOA must take care of essentially the routine and day-to-day maintenance of that, but the city and residential subdivisions takes on the long-term care of those ponds. So it's a split responsibility, but definitely the HOA will have to incur costs annually to manage that area and to take care of it. But the city can step in and require compliance also with the plans and the permits over time, which is a lot different than the older subdivisions, which didn't have those layers of legal obligations attached to them all the time.
Okay, that helps. Does the city of Ames have any sort of annual report that's required for subdivisions to just I guess verify that they're providing basic maintenance for stormwater related infrastructure?
I don't know that off the top of my head. That would go to the city's stormwater specialist if it does happen, and that's managed by the city's municipal engineer. And we have 2 stormwater specialists that do a lot of the supervision of all of those activities across the city. I don't remember if we have an annual report requirement or not, though.
Okay. No, thanks, Kelly.
Yep.
So is the city going to be responsible for mowing on the outlets?
No.
It'd be the homeowners association.
Right.
Okay. And then another question I have is up there at the top end of White Oak Drive along what I call Airport Road, whatever it's called now. From the church to the east, there has been a water drainage problem. Has that been addressed in this? Where if you're going to build up a subdivision in this area, it's going to affect that drainage more.
Guess I'm not familiar with exactly what issue you're talking about, John.
When it rains really bad, the ditch, the green area in front of the church,
okay,
and to the east, the ditches fill up with water, and they go all the way to the top. And I remember the guy on the corner, on the west corner of White Oak, has had problems with water, I think, in his basement because of the drainage through there. And
kind of a broader issue than what this development is doing. This development wouldn't be dealing with ditch capacity issues to the west. We haven't had a discussion with engineering that was an issue that had to be addressed with this project. Their only frontage along the ditch is really lot 63, and they would not impact the current capacity of the ditch. If there's an existing condition, that's something that someone should take up with the Public Works Department, and it wouldn't be part of this developer's responsibilities.
Okay, but what I'm saying is, by developing this area, it will affect the drainage out of that whole area.
Along Oakwood, I don't see that being the case. I don't believe that's anything that we've had to discuss with the municipal engineer or the applicant's engineer. This project does connect to storm sewers. It'll be in Oakwood, so I don't think that again, upstream ditch capacity issues should not be something that's part of this project that I'm aware of.
Okay, if it's not the responsibility, then okay.
Yeah, I don't see a connection there from what we've reviewed in the last few months.
And then I don't know if this is the time to bring it up. It doesn't look like all the lots are covered by the 200-foot hydrant.
I'll let the civil engineer respond to why that diagram's on that. That's not a piece of information that we normally require to be shown at this point in the process. So I think he's just planning that out ahead of where the new hydrants are being set to show their coverage. But I'll have to let Greg Broussard address why that's on this diagram.
Well, the question is, why aren't all the lots covered within the 200-foot area is what I was asking.
I'll let him address that because I don't normally see this diagram having these circumferences on it or these diameters on it. It's something we would normally look at the building permit stage, and I'll let the applicant's engineer explain what's shown there. Maybe they just neglected to show an existing hydrant on Suncrest having coverage as well.
And then on the lot size, just wait until the applicant presents.
I mean, if there's a question, Benjamin can answer the lot size questions.
So wait till he comes on.
If you have
a lot size question,
what that triangle one down to the south end, that looks like it isn't going to fit the right meld in with all the other lots around it.
Right here next to lot 35. You mean right here?
No, all the way down to the bottom. Lot
53.
Yes. There.
This one, lot 53 at the very end.
And what's the concern there?
Is that enough area for a house that would fit to meld into the ones to the west and to the east?
It's a 20,000 square foot lot, so there should be enough, space to build on it. There is a 50-foot setback along here that the developer negotiated. This property was owned jointly by Mr. Arneson, the developer, and the Bergesons, who own the adjacent property. They went their separate ways, divided up the property as part of the negotiation. There's a 50-foot setback right there. But other than that, there aren't any encumbrances on the lot that should prohibit its development.
Well, I understand that it doesn't prohibit it, but will it meld into it's going to be a small house in between two big houses?
I mean, I don't know. It's going to be.
I think you can still build a pretty big house on that lot. Even if half of it's taken up, that's 10,000 square feet, which is a very generous sized lot.
Okay.
This is Ruth Holstrom again. I have just a question about the parking. So for the clubhouse, it says that, staff did some research and they decided that to require additional parking associated with the clubhouse. Now it looks like obviously the developer is planning to include some street parking adjacent. And the reasoning it sounded like for that was because with apartment complexes, if there was a clubhouse that was provided as part of that, that no additional parking would be required. So I guess I have kind of two questions kind of in relation to that. One being, what are the parking requirements for apartment complexes? And then what kind of the max capacity for both the clubhouse and the pool is anticipated to be?
So the occupancy for an apartment complex is based on the units themselves. which is what the parking, the reasoning for the reasoning behind our thinking here was that the homes are all have parking, the same as an apartment building or an apartment complex, and whether or not there is a clubhouse or any kind of communal facility in an apartment complex is not taken into consideration for the parking. And then your question was about the size of the capacity of the clubhouse.
Yeah, the max occupancy for the clubhouse and the pool. Do you have any idea what that would be, or is that something I should ask the developer?
Well, I think the occupancy is decided by the fire department based on the layout of the building and so forth, and what the public spaces will be. The building is approximately 2,000 square feet. I don't have an exact layout of the building, or what will be dining space and what will be kitchen space or anything like that. I suspect the developer has an idea of that.
Okay, I can wait to ask that. I guess you said for parking it's per unit, so it really is dependent upon what for apartments, like number of bedrooms in terms of then the number of parking stalls that would be required.
It's essentially one per bedroom in an apartment project.
Okay, and in this case, there's a mix in terms of garage space versus driveway space. Correct. Where there's a couple of lots that don't necessarily have driveway space. Is that correct? It's just the
correct.
garages.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay, but there's no limitations, obviously, on those houses in terms of when they're built and the number of bedrooms that are provided in them, I'm assuming.
The applicant has
right. They have a couple of elevations they've provided. Yeah,
and they need to follow that general intent. They're not proposing to build 5-bedroom houses or anything that's abnormal.
Okay.
I think what we have is each house meets their minimum required parking with 2 spaces and a garage. 5 of them do not have driveway spaces. The remainder do. And what we were really looking at is that there is on-street parking. Most apartment complexes don't have on-street parking because they're private parking lots for the residents. So you can look at it a couple of different ways. Is it about people that can walk, or are there other means of parking here? And what's the comparable to an apartment complex? It's not necessarily apples to apples, but we felt pretty comfortable that the mix of factors here, the small size of the project made it work. If it was a larger project, I don't know that we would be agreeing that it's completely walkable and that no extra on-site parking was necessary. But we kind of felt like it would work with this. As in terms of if you were to look at this as a facility, I think you would probably start at, if it's a 2,000 square foot building, you would probably start to think that might be a 1 parking space for every 200 square feet. So that might be 10 parking spaces for something like that. Otherwise, there could definitely be more than 10 people in that building. That's for sure. But parking doesn't necessarily match total occupancy of a building either.
Mm-hmm. No, I just kind of want to get a better idea of why staff kind of chose to go the direction that they went with their decision to not necessarily require any parking for the clubhouse. Do you know, for this particular development, is the clubhouse restricted to, I'm assuming, just the folks living in the development, but I'm assuming they could also host parties at the clubhouse potentially? This is just based on my experience with other similar developments.
We will let the applicant explain what the privileges are with the development, but I would agree staff assumed that was possible for the residents as well.
Okay. Yep. Thank you.
This is Anuya. Just to sort of tag on to what Ruth said, I think that was kind of one of my sort of concerns too, that there wasn't any on-site parking for the clubhouse. as you said, Ruth, a lot of these sorts of spaces are used by residents to host parties, and especially if there's a pool there, I'm sure I would love to throw a party there if I lived there. So you're expecting people to drive in, guests to drive in from outside of the area. So I guess even I would like to know if that was the case, how would some of that parking be accommodated around the clubhouse, and just with the concern that should not become a nuisance to residents around, especially who live just around the clubhouse.
I think some of our thinking there as well, and that's a good question, was that we don't have, it's a 2,000 square foot building. Yes, there is a pool. Houses are going to be bigger than the clubhouse. You could host a party in your house, and we don't have any kind of limitations on what kind of party you could host in your private home. So we didn't anticipate that would be overly burdensome based on the size of the property, the size of the building as well.
But I can definitely have the applicant address how that's going to operate, so we have a good understanding and your comfort levels there for what they're proposing to do.
Are there other questions?
Yes, the farmhouse is not part of this development, right? But the garden is.
That is correct. It is not. Correct. The farmhouse is not a part of this.
But the garden, the common garden that's sitting there right now, is going to have houses on it.
Yes.
Okay.
That is correct.
Other questions? Okay, now can we move to presentation by the developer?
Oh, we got a second. We got to bring Keith over.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, hang on. I got it.
So I also moved Greg Broussard over as a panelist. So when Mr. Arnerson is done, Greg is also there for responses. Mr. Keith, is there anybody else in attendance that was part of your team besides Greg?
Steve Peck.
Okay, I will move him over as well. Okay. Okay, so Keith, go ahead and begin on how you want to speak, and the commissioners have questions for you, and then we'll take questions, or the public will have a chance then to speak to the commission as well as part of the public hearing.
This says that the host disabled my screen sharing.
Okay, I'll add that on just a second. Benjamin, can you cancel your screen sharing?
Yep. You should be good to go now, Keith.
All right, try that, Keith.
Go.
All right, we see a PowerPoint, Keith.
Good. Well, first of all, let me just say that I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today, and I kind of centered my presentation more around the details of it than maybe the engineering side that you've been looking at. So please bear that in mind. I'll try to answer questions. I have two other people with me, the engineer from here in town that worked this project up, as well as a representative from the parent company. This is a franchise that I purchased, and I'll get into that here in a little bit. But the representative of that particular company is here as well and can field questions if they might relate to the bigger picture. But I did want you to kind of understand that, you know, I was kind of coming to you now just talking a little bit about the type of housing that we're wanting to bring to town. It is common nationwide. It is not common in Ames, the zero lot line. And I know there's been conversations at the council level, and I'm sure it's your commission, about larger homes on smaller lots. And so that is kind of what we're talking about now. I won't go into any of the details here, but I've developed a couple of other subdivisions prior to this one. And Nature's Crossing is off of South Dakota, 143 lots, which was infill. You know, the last piece of ground that was surrounded on three sides by development. So I am a little familiar with some of the issues that come up when you're trying to do things like this. So this is, Domani is Italian for tomorrow, and the names of the plans that we're going to be using are Italian. The street at the end of the subdivision it's an Italian name for moon, Lunetta. And this is, like Benjamin had said, 63 single family detached residential lots, obviously close to the research park. And then we have the courtyards and the estates. The courtyards are what we'll talk about here. The estates are more commonly understood as conventional development. This is an infill piece, even though it's coming in just recently with its annexation. It is infill in my mind because it's surrounded by development on three sides and therefore shares the same sorts of issues perhaps that infill development would have. Ames schools and a planned residential development or district is 40% of the site is set aside as common green space. So what you're trading, of course, is you're trading individual yards for common space. And but this particular plan that we're talking about, company that we're talking about, has something special that I've been kind of enamored with for years, and that is a very private space. The construction of the buildings allows for a very private space, which I think in today's environment would be very appealing. So I will talk more about that. It is popular nationwide. It's not age restricted. All are welcome. They are single story. They're zero entry front door, zero entry garage, zero entry to the patio, and they can be zero entry to the shower if you wish that. There's different configurations of the master shower. They all have 2 bedrooms, 2 baths, standard on the main floor. They all have a 2-car attached garage. They all have a den or an office, which again is pretty popular in today's environment. And it reduced traffic and school impacts compared to traditional housing. If you want, I think Steve could talk to this. They've done studies that say the people that typically purchase these homes travel at a rate of roughly 50% of what conventional development would be, and then at off-peak hours, both helping the local traffic. I won't go into this. This is just another picture of the development with the houses sitting on the site. But here is something that is kind of important to see, and that is you'll see the front of the house, and then you'll see that each house is somewhat shaped like a U or a C, depending on how you configure them, that leave quite a private courtyard between your house and the next. So one side of your home has almost no windows on it, and the other side is full of windows looking into your private space. 2019, it was a housing giant, so they've got 31 states, 400 communities, 30,000 homes built since 86, I believe, was the first development. 55 franchise builders, again, 400 communities across the country, 30,000 homes, quite a few active at this point in time. It's the 39th largest builder in the nation. And you can see what you see on these houses is they have a small frontal elevation, and they are fairly narrow at the front and deep. And what you're looking at the right, of course, is the side of the home that opens to the courtyard. The courtyard is typically 10 feet. Most of the lots, or the minimum lot size recommended by this particular type of development, is a 52-foot lot, 42 in the house, 10 in the courtyard. Most of my lots are, many of them are larger than that. I think the largest is 68 feet wide. So we're going to offer 5 home plans, many structural and cosmetic options. Again, all zero entry. They're semi-custom, but they are slab on grade. 4% take rate nationwide of people wanting basements. We have many lots in there, and I think it's part of your report on which can accommodate basements, but we don't think there will be a large request for basements. We do believe that 50% of the population, if it holds to national norms, will opt for a second-story bonus suite built into the rafters and roof of the system. So some would call it a story and a half. Homes will range from these 5 plans that I picked will range from $15.19 for the smallest main floor plan to $29.30 on 2 stories on 2 levels of the largest plan. The clubhouse, I believe, is actually 1,850 square feet, so we can come back to that relative to your questions. And the community will have a model home as well as a sales trailer. Hopefully you've seen that, and there have been some comments from people recommending the community that understand that would be a temporary placement over off of Oakwood. Lot width here is 52 to 68. That is comparable to White Oak. And then the homeowners association will handle the lawn care, the snow removal, the maintenance of the green spaces. That includes the ponds as well as the clubhouse and the pool. Courtyards have universal design. The community spaces are key to success. I think Benjamin put 3 of the 5 plans in your packet. So I don't know that I'll spend a lot of time with this. It does show these are, even though they look similar, these are 3 frontal elevations and 3 of the plans out of the 5 that I would want to offer. These all have the side courtyards. There are also some rear courtyards. There's another shot of the courtyards and the windows to the homes that come off the sitting rooms and the bedrooms and the dining rooms and really most of the rooms in the home. And then the estate lots are at the far end, 12 lots. I have some custom loft style homes that by loft, I mean that they're going to have main floor living, but have bedrooms upstairs, office spaces upstairs. So designed for possibly a different demographic, and then full custom plans for the larger 7 lots. This is a possible streetscape, and I actually have developed 3 different sets of plans for these types of houses, which can have 1-car, 2-car garages, and they could have a tandem as well. So 1 car in front of the other. These would go, or could potentially go, on the smallest lots at the southern end of the development. So that being said, I guess I'd like to open it up to your questions, either new or existing questions.
Hi, this is Anu. But first off, I will say I love the density that this layout is proposing in the area. I think it's really cool to see something new and different.
Great.
I had not really heard and come across 0 lot line houses, which is strange. So it was a good educating experience for me. My question to you, why 0 lot line houses? What are you trying to do?
Well, there are 2 ways of doing this particular type of development. One is 0 lot line, where, of course, your house wall sits on the end of the courtyard of the house beside it. The other way to do that is that you retain a 5-foot setback, but your HOA typically would be granting the use an easement of that space to your neighboring property. So we didn't really see any particular benefit in having a 5-foot courtyard on one side and an easement for an additional 5 foot into the setback of the adjoining home. So we did go 0 lot line. We have done 0 lot line by attached housing, or I have, in a number of places in town. These are, these are just fairly large houses on small lots. They're not by attached. The market seems to really want detached houses that would otherwise perhaps be called a townhouse. And what people in our area seem to think a townhouse means is that regardless of the structure, it includes a provision for lawn care and snow removal. And so that's really what this is. It's called different things across the nation, but that was our reason for doing the 0 lot line. So the courtyard would be in its entirety on the lot that it adjoined. Did I answer your question?
Yes, you did. Thank you. Because I was the thing in my mind as I was reading through this and looking up 0 lot line houses was also trying to, exactly like you said, understand how does it differ, or in terms of what it's trying to achieve, how does it differ from, say, a twin home that is set on 2 separate lots? Because with a 0 lot line, one side of the house which sits on the lot line is, most of your plans show no windows, which makes sense because you're trying to provide that courtyard space for the next door neighbor. So I was trying to understand why, in terms of what you're trying to achieve, how does it differ from a twin home that sits on 2 separate lots? So you have different ownership on both the lots, and yet they share that common wall, and it provides those courtyards on the opposite sides of the houses now.
Yeah, and in Somerset, it's interesting because I said I've been kind of enamored with this sort of layout with the side courtyard. And so I actually drew some custom plans in Somerset in 2006, shortly after I started my company. And they're still up there. I built 9, and I built them so that they were 0 lot line on the common wall, of course. And then their side courtyard was on the outside of the property. So if there's a bi-attached, then the side courtyards were on the outside on the property line. The problem with that is then when I did the next bi-attached courtyard home next to it, well, that has 2 side courtyards facing each other. And that just isn't what the customer wants. The customer wants a private space. And so these houses are specifically designed, like you said, without windows and with a very private side of the home, and then a very open side of the home that is like an outside living room, extension of the living room. And bring the outside in is one of the concepts that builders have been trying to adopt in any climate. You know, while malls are having their troubles everywhere, you will notice that strip malls and shopping centers outside are even popular in cold climates. And so we're just trying to tag on to what seems to be a common interest for buyers.
Interesting. I'm intrigued by this idea, and I think I have some more questions, but those are more on the design side. But I'll let the others ask their set of questions and maybe come back to you again. I do want to ask one before I close, though. You mentioned there are some houses that would be built on grade with no basement, and you said that there are probably people who do not care for basements or do not want. Given that we live in Iowa, and given that we are just getting out of this huge Category 2 hurricane/derecho, the lack of basements kinds of puts a question mark for me if that is something that needs to be provided, or how would you make up or provide that sort of safe space in situations like those kinds of natural events?
Yeah, I think that's an excellent question. And if I were living in one, I would want that as well. So if, you can choose to have a basement. One of the reasons that that most people don't do basements, I believe on these, is they want finished space upstairs, but also because the side courtyard eliminates the ability to put windows on the side of the home. So the windows are relegated to the rear for the most part. There are 3 of these communities from this same franchise company in Des Moines, one in Ankeny. I believe it started in 2015, possibly 16. And then there's one in Clive and there's one in West Des Moines. And so I've looked into that a little bit, and their take rate is pretty high. In other words, a number of people are interested in storm shelters that are self-contained, freestanding, that you bolt into the garage floor. And that is something I certainly would want to make available to people. So there are ways around it.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Well, there's nothing that would preclude them from having a basement.
No, if you look at one of the plans I have, I believe that over half of the lots that I have will accommodate a basement. I don't think I'll have anywhere close to that will request it, but I certainly have. I don't have it in front of me, but I believe it's half of the lots will accommodate basements. Everything is other than half.
Okay, what will the price point be on these?
Well, I'm still working up the prices, but the least expensive home, again, it's going to be buying a piece of the clubhouse and pool as well, but it's probably going to be around $330 for the entry level, least expensive plan. But I do believe, and please don't hold me to this, I don't have all the numbers back, but I believe that all of the single story 5 plans will start in the 300s.
Okay. I also had concerns, like Anu was saying, was this is Iowa. Sometimes we need a storm shelter, and there'd be in the 2.5 car garages be places for a bolt down.
Yep, I agree with it. There's another type too that I've looked into. I don't know how I feel about it, quite frankly, but it has a sliding steel door, and it's a case that you pour into the basement floor under the car. Now you can argue that maybe the car's not going to be there when you want to get in it, but I think a bigger problem for me, if I were thinking about it, would be, gee, if torrential rains come with this thing too, do I really want to be in a hole in the ground? But anyway, at any rate, there are several options. One is they can purchase a basement. 2 is that there's a bolt-in system that is readily available and is used locally. And then there are some alternative methods that we're looking at.
Okay, with the zero, what do you call it again? The zero
lot line.
Zero lot line.
Yeah.
The very center photo on here, that would shed water into. That would shed water onto the common, the courtyard of the house next door.
No,
you go
are
back.
you looking at the same image that I'm looking at right now?
Flip back to the one you had before. There.
Oh,
the very center home.
Yeah.
That would shed water into the courtyard of the house next door, right?
These are not zero lot line. These are the 12 conventional lots at the south end. I was just trying to give you some flavor for what the houses might look like that are not the Epcon style.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So they will look more like this, and we'll run tile to level out that courtyard, so they will drain.
And I guess this was for Kelly. Any place that has a basement has to have egress windows?
Only if it's a bedroom. You can have basements without bedrooms.
Okay.
The basements that I've seen in Ankeny and Des Moines with these Epcon products do have 2 windows, but they are at the far end of they're at the rear of the home.
Okay.
Are there other questions for the developer?
I could come back to your question about the clubhouse, and I don't know that I have all the answers. I will say that of the 1,850 square feet, the center of it is common area, and it's really designed for people who live in the area to gather. Could there be a party where outside people were invited? Yes. Will that happen? I'm sure it will. And that's one of the reasons that we not only wanted the 5 spaces inset on the street next to the clubhouse, but also if you look across the street, almost directly across the street, out on Green Hills Drive, there are additional spaces as well. And that doesn't count the on-street parking, but we did, I believe there's 10 spaces there. Greg's on the line with me. Maybe he can identify the number of spots, or maybe we can bring it up.
I believe there's 8 there, Keith.
Okay. It's this is an older rendition, so these are no longer head-in parking. These are parallel. So you've got these spaces here, and then you've got additional spaces over here. And we were thinking that those would supplement people gathering at the clubhouse.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anu, you said you had additional questions?
Yeah, I guess it's more of a discussion on the design kind of thing. So I don't really have a question on it. I'm intrigued by this concept of zero lot line houses, and I find the idea of those intimate, cozy courtyard outdoor living spaces really cool. And then I'm also torn a little bit with the lack of cross ventilation in the houses, because one side of the house is without windows. And I know that's just one of my sort of pet peeves. I really look for cross ventilation in houses, especially given the weather that we live in. And there's just few months where you can actually throw those windows open and stuff. So it was more on that. So I don't necessarily have a question. I recognize it's still a very innovative thing, and I have not seen this in Ames. So I think it would be a really cool addition.
I would really encourage you to go onto YouTube and look up EPCON, because they have a number of walkthrough YouTube videos that show. It's really kind of amazing to see how these spaces open up and how much light they let in. There are windows on 3 sides of the property, so yeah, you're right. There's not cross ventilation both ways, but there is access on at least 3 directions. And if you look at the way that these lay out, if you ever get the chance to go through one or to look at one on YouTube, I think you're going to be amazed at how large and open and light that they feel. And the courtyard thing, people just love the side courtyard. That is their claim to fame. It's the reason that, I've done a lot of custom development myself, custom homes. I've done 12 Parade of Homes houses that, at all sorts of price points. But I will say that this really struck me when I saw it the first time. And I think we are going to have a model, if you approve this, for people to be able to take a look at. But I think if you've never been in one, they're shockingly spacious.
I would love to do a walkthrough of a model house when you have one ready. It's really curious. I'm really curious about this whole setup.
And John, my engineer just texted me and said that 60% of the lots that we're going to have available have the availability for basements.
That's good to know.
Yes.
What else can I answer for you?
I see Commissioner Holstrom has her hand raised. And I see that we've got a number calling in. It doesn't have a name attached to it. I think she had some issues connecting before. I'm not sure if that is her. Hang on just a second here. Number ending in 831, is that you, Ruth? Maybe not.
Hi, Benjamin. Yeah, this is Ruth Holstrom. I was having some issues with the internet where it wasn't connecting properly, so I called in just using my cell line.
Okay, gotcha. I just wanted to make sure we had you there.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
If there are no more questions for the developer, are there community members that wish to speak during this public hearing?
Carol, sorry, can I ask the developer a question?
Oh, sure. Go ahead, Ruth. Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to step on you.
Oh, no, it's fine. So I was just curious, just based on the elevations, I'm assuming that the spaces kind of above the garage that are showing windows, those are just generally for architectural purposes. There's no potential living quarters above the garages. Is that correct?
No, there definitely is in some of the plans. They have bonus suites that are built into the roof structure, and they do these pictures that you're looking at right here. For the most part, I think are single story. I don't know if I have one that represents a 2-story or not. This, yeah, the one on the left here at what you're looking at. That is definitely a living space. And again, I would really encourage you to take a look at the video if you get the chance. But upstairs in the bonus suites on these structures, you'll walk into a living room with windows looking off to the side. You'll have a bedroom, a full bathroom, and a kitchenette if you so choose. The kitchenette, it can be outfitted with a refrigerator and a microwave or whatever you might want. But the upstairs suite is a self-contained unit. So guests that you have come, your family or whatever, it's a great space that's off the main level.
Like a granny room.
Yeah, it really is. Only it's kind of a glorified version of that because it is completely self-contained. Kitchen, bathroom, bedroom, living room. It's even got a dining area in it.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that. So speaking to kind of the stormwater piece, as I kind of described when I was asking staff about it, with the HOA that'll essentially be in place, is it going to be clear to residents as they're purchasing these lots that they might be responsible somehow for the stormwater piece? I've definitely had experiences with upset, I guess, buyers who did not understand that the lake or the pond in their backyard was their responsibility based on the real estate agent potentially not sharing that information with them. So I just want to make sure that I hope it's the intention of the developer as they're selling the lot to make that clear.
Well, I'll be one of those people, and I am a real estate agent, and I do not take offense to that because I've never made a mistake, but I have heard others make mistakes. So yes, I'll make it very, very clear that the ponds are part of the homeowners association. When you if you go to the site or if you look anywhere, the grounds, the outlots are going to be held. They're going to be deeded to the homeowners association. So the agent should be talking about it. The sales agent should be talking about it. If they have an agent on their side, they should be talking about it. Anyone who's doing title opinions or reviewing the abstract, it's going to be relayed in there. And then since these are since this is a national company that's been around since '86, I think they've seen every problem that there could be because the length of their restrictive covenants and homeowners association docs is longer than anything that I've ever created, anything I've ever seen before. So yes, we'll be. I'll give you my word that we'll be very careful to make sure that people understand what they own.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Is there, and there's no way for anybody to opt out of the HOA?
No.
Okay.
No, and it's a 12-month HOA. It's every month. It's not an annual fee. And no, there is no way to opt out.
Other questions for the developer? Okay, Benjamin, do we have any community members to speak?
I do see that we do have several hands raised. So I will go ahead, and it looks like Pat Parker hand is raised. You are up.
Thank you. I live in one of the houses along White Oak. There are 4 homes on White Oak that are going to be impacted by the lack of green space behind our homes. And I wonder if the developer could speak to why those 4 homes are being treated differently than the rest of the homes along White Oak.
Keith, if you don't mind, I'm going to take back the screen and put up a map so we can see what we're talking about.
Yeah, so take that back. I just want to interject. So as part of the, Carol, we do need to open the public hearing, and the public comment is to be directed to the commission itself.
All right, thank you.
Not directed to staff or the applicant. So the commissioners hear testimony and questions from the public as part of the public hearing.
That's fine, thank you. We will now open the public hearing, and we have our first community member on here. Would you please also state your address so that we can get that in minutes, and then address your questions to the commission, and we'll do our best to get them answered.
Okay. Again, my name's Pat Parker, and I'm at 3008 White Oak, which is like 2 homes south of the Sunset Drive. And you will see that the outlot B stops about halfway through my property. And then there's 2 homes there. And then across the street to the north, there's 2 more homes. And so there's 4 homes along White Oak that have no green space behind them. And I was just curious if the developer could speak to why he has treated this part of the neighborhood differently in terms of green space.
Kelly, would you like to wrangle that one for me?
Well, I guess that's a question for the developer and why they have a lot layout that they've chosen. The city doesn't have a green space buffer requirement along single family homes. Other than that, I can't say more than that and why the applicant chose to do that.
Keith, can you address this question? Mr. Arneson, are you on?
Sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry about that. Well, I think maybe I'd like to start off first by just saying that while I did not meet with Mrs. Parker, I did meet with twice in person with the 2 houses that are most impacted by this, which is the Hammonds and the Whipples. And this question was repeatedly raised. And I guess my answer to that is that it's not feasible for me to abandon lots. And not only that, but if you go up Suncrest onto the other side of the block, you will see how houses pivot and are fronted onto Suncrest. And this isn't any different than that, number one. And number two, I guess I would just ask, if you drive around town, do you see lots off the corner that are abandoned? I understand how it must be very upsetting to have an open field in your backyard for 10 years or 12 years or whatever it is. I understand how it must be difficult. When I talked to the Whipples and the Hammonds in person, they both made it clear that they understood it would develop someday, and chose to live on an area with a stubbed out street. So that wouldn't really be a question as to whether or not it was going to develop. It was more of when, I assume. And development has happened on three sides, and you know, the land was blocked from development for quite a period of time, which is fine. But once the land sold, I guess, and perhaps maybe a better way to say it would be that if it were conventional development, there would be a backyard backing up to every house on White Oak. And I thought that providing 40% green space in outlots throughout the area with additional ponds to look at, pathways to get to the park, was a significant improvement to the area in general.
Thank you, Keith. Do we have other community members wishing to speak to the commission on this hearing?
Yes, we have Diana Whipple. And you're up, Miss Whipple.
Okay, thank you. I'm Diana Whipple, and I live at 3002 White Oak. And my property is next to where lot 23 is. and I appreciate that Keith has met with us, and we've exchanged some emails over time. And like he said, I knew that this property was being developed. What is concerning to me and is the disparity. This configuration is creating a significant disparity among the homes that are existing on White Oak Drive. And there's the difference between having a structure 8 feet from the property line versus the setback that is part of outlot B or the other outlots. There are no other homes in the existing property on White Oak that are being impacted like this. So my concern is the disparity, and it's significant. And then the impact on our property values as a result of the way this is being done. I don't object to the development. I think it's going to be a very nice development. I would really like to see the issue with the way those lot 23 and lot 36 are configured against Suncrest, and then the impact that it's having on the homes that is significantly different than the rest of the homes along there.
Thank you. We appreciate your comments. Is there anyone else?
I do not see any more hands that are raised.
Just a reminder, if you are one of the other participants from the public, what we're asking is if you're on Zoom to use the raise hand function, and then we'll unmute you so you can speak to the commission. If you've dialed in on a phone, you can dial *9 to indicate a hand raised also. But we do not see any other hands raised at this point.
Is 23 and 22 zero lot lines?
Yes, the 20 lot 22, lot 23, lot 36, lot 37. They are zero lot lines. Hang on, I've got an exhibit that shows
that one shows the setback.
This one has the setbacks there on the north that are required, the 8-foot setbacks. But I have
where's the court line? Where's the courtyard's going to be on those homes?
And this is what the layout is.
Okay.
Could I speak to that?
Go ahead.
Perhaps I could just answer some questions that. Well, first of all, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perhaps I can, and I did meet with Diana, and I do understand, I do understand the concern. It's not that I don't. So when we were having a conversation, the first conversation, I asked what the biggest concern would be, and it was water. And so we put in outlot A's pond. And one thing that wasn't really discussed tonight was, it was in the report if you saw it, but outlot A is going to have a pipe that's going to go to Oakwood. And that's supposed to dry up the wetland area that exists in the park. That was part of my offer to the people with the Parks and Rec Commission. But getting back to this specific issue, so the first question was water, you know, and so I'm trying to deal with water issues. I will say this about water, or I will say this about infill in general. And, you know, I'm a big boy. I can take what these things kind of, but the problem with infill is that when you're the last guy in, if there were deficiencies anywhere in the area, the expectation is the last guy in takes care of everything. And I'm trying to be sympathetic to the number one problem that I heard from the entire community out there, and that was water. And I'm trying to do my best to oversize the water as it passes through this area, in addition to these ponds that I have. And I'm trying to spend extra money to take Pond A out to the street, and not try to have it hold the water and leave a wetland in the park. So the first issue that was raised was water. And then the second issue that was raised was privacy. And I get that. You know, I want my backyard to be private too, but you know, the other option in a conventional development would be a backyard that would face your backyard, and you'd both have decks looking at each other, which is fine. It happens all the time. In this scenario, the house sits your question about zero lot line, it is zero lot line, but with an 8-foot setback on these.
Is she ready for bed, Nick?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, come here.
But
Okay, all right.
And so these two lots will, the house, the zero part of the house, the wall, the foundation wall, will be 8 feet in from the property line, unlike the other houses in the development. And then that I made sure that that side of the house would be the blank side, would be the non-courtyard side, so that the people, so Diana and the Hammonds would have more privacy. And then the street, Suncrest itself, not only stubbed out, but the expectation was, and the requirement was, that Suncrest continue through to Green Hills Drive. So it wasn't a question about whether or not I could, you know, work around that stub in. That stub in an extension is required, and quite frankly, indicated. You know, I think we all feel like at age you want to increase connectivity, and I think the road going from Cottonwood over to the significant expenditure the city has made on University is a good move, and I think Suncrest is a good move. But you know, there are some houses that are impacted that happen to abut a stubbed out street. So I guess that's my explanation.
We appreciate that. Thank you very much. While we were listening, were there any other public hands raised or call-ins?
I do see a repeat hand. Ms. Whipple has her hand up again.
All right.
Thank you. I just want to clarify from the outset, my concern has been about the disparity and the impact on our property values, and this is our home. And the request was to consider a reconfiguration so that we didn't have this significant disparity created that really does not exist elsewhere in the neighborhood. So my concern from the outset is the disparity. And yes, I mentioned the drainage, but I think probably the drainage issue is greater for some of those that are south of me. The privacy, yes, that came up in an email, but it's the disparity. And in my view, it's pretty significant if you zoom back out and look at all of the other houses along White Oak. And I think that's important when you're building a new neighborhood, to consider the existing neighborhood.
Thank you, Ms. Whipple.
Can I respond to that? I did not talk about the home value portion of the question. Do you mind if I respond to that?
So Carol, we got to remember in the decorum of the public hearing, these are comments to the commission, and it's up to the chair to recognize when other people speak, and at some point it is just one option of speaking and not a dialogue back and forth. So
Yeah, I think
I'll hand it back to you, Carol, to decide how to continue.
Yeah, I think at this point we'll close the public hearing.
So that would mean that if the public hearing is closed, then we return to questions of staff that might be outstanding, and then discussion by the commission itself.
That's correct. So at this point, commissioners, do you have any additional questions of staff or conversation amongst yourselves about issues that have been raised?
This is Anu. I have a quick one just to follow up on the discussion we just had. If we were to look at the base layer, base zone as RL, what would be the side yard setback that would have been required if it was RL?
For lots 23 and 36?
Yeah, just if...
Or just for all of them, I guess.
Yes, no, just for, I'm thinking with regard specifically to those, if at all we were to look at the base zoning as RL, what might the side yard setback required be?
Yeah, the development has complied with the requirements of the PRD, which is that on the perimeter of the development, that the setbacks match what is in the base zoning district. So in RL for a single story house, the side setback is 6 feet, and for a 2-story house, the side setback is 8 feet. So out of an abundance of caution, we required a minimum of an 8-foot setback. The developer has just told you he's intending for most of these homes to be 1-story, but we required, and he agreed to have an 8-foot setback there along the perimeter on Suncrest.
So if this were not a PRD, if it was developed as a regular RL, then this site, then those two lots would have met whatever the requirement in terms of side yard setback would have been. Am I understanding that right?
Correct. Yes, the setback would be the same whether it is this PRD as it is constructed, or if it were straight RL zoning.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Other questions for staff? Is there any?
Carry on since there aren't. If there aren't any other questions, I seem to be on a roll. Sorry. I assume staff has obviously looked at all scenarios with stormwater, as well as with street width infrastructure that might be required in this kind of lot and house layout. Both, there's been extensive discussion about stormwater tonight. The one thing that we didn't really talk about was just overall street widths and the ease of access for any service vehicles in and around through the development. I assume staff and the rest of the city staff has already looked into it, and we don't need to really think through with that, right?
Yeah, we did discuss the fire department and the public works department, who I think would be most impacted by what you're asking, Commissioner, regarding the street widths and the ability to access the site. Considerations in that include having all of the street stubs continue in and not just terminate or end. The Green Hills Drive is continuing in and forms a spine down the development. The developer has met all the code requirements in terms of access and street width, which mirrors those in other developments in the cities.
I'm gonna add on to that, just kind of as an FYI for everyone. So what's going on here is these are public streets. They meet the same subdivision code standards as you would see in any other subdivision that's out there. Cottonwood's a little wider to match how it was built previously, and then Green Hills is our standard local streets design. One thing that Keith didn't cover in the presentation is FCON's design model is often along private streets. So he's had to adapt to meeting our public street standards and trying to meet really what we would expect out of all subdivisions where it's not a private community that's closed off. Staff pushed, we didn't push, Keith understood from the beginning, this is a public street setup. Everything has to function as a public street and be an integrated neighborhood. The one area that we had to work on a couple of different options for was the Green Hills intersection and how to work with the offset of Green Hills and how to work with the parking lot. But after a couple of different options, we have all agreed with the traffic engineering and with the applicant on how to reconstruct this intersection and make it a better access into the south and make the park access still work as well.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion amongst commissioners? If not, I'm open to a motion for an action.
Was the city engineer going to talk about water?
We do not have the municipal engineer present tonight. If there's some other questions, I can respond to that, or we can have the the public hearing is closed. So if there was a question for the civil engineer, that part is over. Is there something more specific that we need to address?
We were talking about the hydrants earlier, and I thought you said you had somebody there that was going to address it.
That was the applicant's engineer. I can assure you, John, that the fire hydrant coverage and the radius would get
okay.
We'll double check that, and that'll get covered before building permits. But we'll definitely cover that before it goes to city council.
Right. I was just concerned about on some of the radius there was like 5 lots that were not covered.
We'll definitely double check on that. Again, we'll make sure that's covered. That's a code requirement. It won't get dropped as we go ahead.
Okay.
So I guess I'm just curious. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
This is Ruth Holstrom. Sorry, I guess wanted to hear other commission members' thoughts on the situation with lots 23 and 36 in terms of how those are kind of laid out, and if other commission members have any concerns. I definitely feel like I empathize with those property owners that are backing up to those proposed lots, but at the same time also aware if this is developed out as a RL district that essentially the lots would be allowed to potentially have homes similarly placed on the lot. So it's just I guess I would be curious to hear how other commission members feel about that situation.
Hey Ruth, this is Doug. I mean, I would kind of echo your comments. I mean, I understand, but just what you said.
I also understand what the concerns are. I live where there's nobody behind me, but I know there will be somebody there someday, and I probably won't have any control over what's going to be built back there. And it's a big concern, but I don't.
This is Mike Clayton. I guess my own thoughts on this are, again, that I feel sorry for those people that are right there on those few lots. I mean, this could have been laid out so that there wasn't even an outlot B or D. Then nobody would have had, or I guess everybody would have had the same issue. But it looked like the developer, the way they had it laid out with the zero side toward them, but in 8 feet, looked like he at least has tried to address it.
Any additional comments? Then let's have a motion, please.
This is Anu. I can make a motion. I'll make a motion to approve alternative one, which is the staff recommendation, is to recommend City Council approve the request for the rezoning, preliminary plat, and major site development plan for Damani with the noted conditions as listed, with the noted 7 conditions. Is it 7? Sorry, the 3 sections A, B, C. With the noted conditions listed in the alternative. How about that?
Sounds good. Do we have a second?
This is Doug, I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve alternative 1 as provided by the staff. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
I just want to point out for those that are paying attention and staying with us that this item does have another public hearing with the City Council. That will be in September, and there will be new notices sent out for the council public hearing.
Okay. Thank you, Kelly. The next agenda item is zoning text amendment for setback encroachments and projections. Can staff give us an overview of this, please?
Give us 1 second here to get kind of reset with all the different people that are going to be here.
I understand.
Ooh. All right. I think we're all back to the commission and the planners. Ray, are you going to introduce this item for us tonight?
Yes. Yes, I am. Can everyone see attachment B on the screen? Proposed draft revisions?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I'd like to go through that attachment B and give you a further explanation here as to what's changing and some more insight into why that was done. First of all, we have some definitions that most of these are new definitions. There's about 6 new definitions. One's for balcony, one's for canopy, deck, landing, marquee, and pergola. And those are all brand new to address the terminology that will be used in the revisions and elsewhere in the code. And then there are some current definitions that we are making some changes to, and that includes awning and building coverage and porch. We are still working with the building inspections department to make sure these definitions coordinate with the definitions that are in the building code. We've had 1 meeting with them, but I'm sure we'll have more after the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting before we go to City Council, so that we can make sure our definitions in the zoning code and those in the building code don't conflict. So
I just want to jump in there, Ray. So,
yeah, go ahead.
So for the commission who doesn't have to deal with the different codes, the building code uses some of the same terminology, but it definitely has different meanings within the building code. And what we're trying to regulate here is placement of different features on property, not necessarily their structural aspects. And in some cases, we do think of things differently in a planning and zoning code than the building inspections department does. And really what we're doing is making sure we're on the same page, that under the building code, there might be a different application of the word awning or canopy than how we think of it as a building feature, and just making sure that both divisions will understand that. So we're answering customer questions the same, whether it's a planning question or a building inspections question. So that's just, we're trying to give you insight that it does need to get coordinated with them. And it is going to be through the eyes of the zoning ordinance about the external features and how they relate to the site, and mostly about setbacks is our number 1 concern here.
Going further down the page here to the setbacks, as you look at that section number 2, extensions into required building setbacks, we've added that to provide a means of allowing extension into non-conforming setbacks if the zoning board of adjustment grants a minor area modification. And so that's a new feature that we haven't had in the code before for this section. And then we've also added, if an item is not specifically identified below, the zoning enforcement officer may make a zoning interpretation and determination based on similarity to another listed item. And the zoning enforcement officer is the building official. We work with the building official on zoning items, and this would then allow an interpretation and determination if the particular feature is not specifically listed. In the proposed changes, we still have minor projections allowed. That's in the current code. And we have added a few things. One thing in particular I'd like to point out is uncovered stairways. We've added the words leading to an upper story entrance or deck. Uncovered stairways are included not only in minor projections allowed, but also in full projections. There wasn't really any distinction between the two. So this is what we're talking about for uncovered stairways that would have a minor projection, which is up to 3 feet into the minimum required setback and at least 3 feet from the property line. So if you scroll down here to full projections, uncovered stairways, including landings, and let me see here. Okay, yep, here we go. Uncovered stairways, including landings and accessible access ramps and associated handrails that lead directly to, and this is the added part that distinguishes this from the uncovered stairways that are allowed to have a minor projection. It says that lead directly to a first floor or basement building entrance. So if you have uncovered stairways, it depends on where that stairway is leading to. It's whether you can have a full projection or a minor projection. Going back up again to the minor projections, we've taken decks out of minor projections. Decks are very confusing in the code as it's written now, and we've added decks to architectural feature projections, which I'll talk about more in a minute, and also the full projections allowed, where it's already in full projection allowed. Uncovered decks no higher than 24 inches above finished grade, but we didn't have much guidance as far as, okay, if it's no higher than 24 inches, what can you do? Well, now we've included in this new section called architectural feature projections, and that would allow a deck to project 8 feet into the front yard or rear yard setback, or 3 feet into the side yard setback. And in this new section, which we've created to enhance the entrance to a home or create an outdoor usable area, to give some more flexibility with how decks are added to a home. That's been kind of a sticking point on several particular properties where they ask, where can I build a deck? How big can it be? Can it go into the setback? So there's decks, and then in this section also are porches, stoops, porticos, pergolas, marquees, and canopies. Marquees and canopies may come out of this. We still need to work on some language for marquees and canopies in commercial areas. And then, as I mentioned a minute ago, it tells you that you can go 8 feet in the front or rear yard setback, or 3 feet into the side. And then we have full projections, which is a category that we presently have in the code. And instead of saying wheelchair ramp, we're saying accessible access ramps. And there are the items that are crossed through are either eliminated or moved elsewhere. Here where it says driveways, patios, sidewalks, and similar at-grade services, it says moved. Well, it's just moved further down in this list of items, so it hasn't been deleted. And then for landscape accents, that's some new language. It's underlined. Anything that's underlined is the new language. Before we said arbors with a footprint no greater than 10 square feet. And we don't have a good reason why we should limit it to 10 square feet. And there can be circumstances where it would not meet that. So we're eliminating that. We've crossed through that, and that part will be deleted, but you can still have arbors extend into the setback. Much of these other items remain the same. Mechanical units, play structures, fences are in another section of the code. And then satellite dishes, that's now clarified as 1 meter in diameter, consistent with federal regulations. We've added mailboxes. Cluster box units are those groupings of mailboxes that serve an entire neighborhood. And then for signs, we need more clarification there as well. So that's all new language for signs as to what you can have that would fully project into the building setback. Porches, they did have their separate section, but again now they're incorporated into the architectural features section that we're proposing as part of this change. And here it just talks about exceptions for minor area modifications as another added section that clarifies exceptions for minor area modifications. As I talked about earlier, this is in that section where it's Article 15, where it talks about minor area modifications. So we could, with the approval of the Zoning Board of Adjustment, allow an extension into a non-conforming setback. That's about all I have for a presentation. Be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Commissioners have any questions?
This is Anu. I have a quick one, Ray. In your architectural features, I know this is just carryover from the porch section that you're removing and adding on to the architectural features or feature projections. What drives that no closer than 3 feet? What drives that 3 feet distance? No closer than 3 feet from the property line.
Oh, not more than 3 feet. And at least 3 feet from the property line.
Right.
Yeah. Well, if we have accessory structures, the current code requires that they be a minimum of 3 feet from the property line. And so some of these things could be accessory structures and not attached to the dwelling itself. But we thought it was consistent with that setback from the property line for accessory structures to require the same for these features.
Okay, that makes sense. I was just curious if there's something in the fire code or building code that drives that minimum distance from a property line. But that's helpful. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
Any other questions for Ray?
This is Mike Clayton. I have just a real general question. Kelly mentioned early on in the discussion that sometimes the descriptions here are interpreted differently by different offices or different boards and commissions. How do we come to an agreement on what something means if there's a disagreement?
Well, you have to meet the most stringent. So that's laid out in the Ames Municipal Code. If you're meeting a standard, you have to meet the most stringent standard in the code, and it has to be contextual too. So in this case, you'd be asked to meet both if that was what was required. What's typically the issue with the building code is it has a bunch of exceptions for canopies and awnings that exempt them from needing permits. And that's really what drives the problems, is that in one world you don't need a permit, but still through planning and zoning standards still apply. So the more stringent is the ruling standard.
Okay, makes sense.
Other questions? Then I would request a motion regarding the text amendment for setback encroachments.
I can make a motion, Anuya. Make a motion that the Plan and Zoning Commission approve alternative 1 with a staff recommendation to approve the proposed zoning text changes.
This is Ruth Holstrom, I'll second.
Thank you, Ruth. Oh, we got 2 seconds. Great. All those in favor of the approval of the zoning text amendments, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Right.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The motion passes. Thank you. Now our agenda calls for commission comments. Any comments from our commissioners?
This is Ruth Holstrom. I just want to check in with all the other commission members. Make sure you guys are okay. Does anyone need help with cleanup? I know a guy with a chainsaw.
This is
but no, in all seriousness, if you need a chainsaw, I know a guy.
Is it out of the back of his semi?
Well, so not quite, not quite.
So this is Carol. I want to give some compliments to the city. They have already cleared off the brush by the street, on my street. They did that all day today. It's wonderful. We appreciate it because it was a mess. Other commission comments?
This is Anuya. Ruth, thank you. I fortunately do not need to take up your offer. I did not really suffer much, hardly no damage. But thank you very much. I would like to echo Kara. I think the city staff, the city crew, and all the partners that the city worked with and is continuing to work with has done a phenomenal job. Working endless hours, trying to get the city back on track, trying to get everyone back on track with electricity, power, and all the other things. So a big thank you from me, my family, and I'm sure that's a sentiment that's shared by all residents in the city. So thank you.
Yes, I was not affected too badly at all out at the very west end, but this city's done a great job getting everybody back up, and Ames is really pretty lucky because I've been touring around, taking a look at a couple different places. I have some friends down by Slater and Madrid, and their house is gone, and their outbuildings, and we lucked out. But and then I also like to put it up to the city council that congratulations on starting to work on a mask mandate.
I would agree with that also.
I agree with both of what he said. Yep.
Any additional comments? How about some staff comments?
I really don't have any comments tonight.
Oh, come on, Kelly.
Yeah, Kelly. Did staff, are you guys okay? Staff okay?
Yeah, staff is okay. We had some people out of town and in town that definitely didn't have power like many others for a while. So, we got back together by the end of the week. That was, everybody was helping out with other things too.
We appreciate it. Thank you very much. Well, with that, I would accept a motion to adjourn our meeting.
I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Thank you, John.